All right. Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday. I think is it the last day or is it the first day of the month? Huh. I don't know. Oh well. Yeah, like I said, good morning. I hope everyone is having a great week. It's been a few days since I made a video. Actually, I don't think I made a video since last Thursday, Friday, or something. So I've been processing some things, especially from the last video that I made. Which was not the last, I don't know if it was the last, all I know it was a breast cancer video that I made. There's some things that I had to process myself, and that's what I've been doing. And it's been moving along nicely. So all the things that I preach, I put into practice. So I'm not just putting stuff out there and walking away. I am actually putting my words into action. So today I want to talk about the ego. But not just the ego, but the ego in relation to this new age spiritual movement that's happening. Because there's some things that are happening that are not allowing people to truly heal themselves. And I'll give you some examples of what I mean by that. So, the ego, as we understand it today in this day and age, is different than how it was defined when it was first acknowledged or identified, right? So, long ago, when the idea of the ego first came about, what do we have going on here? It was characterized, or defined, I should say. It was defined as your personality or your character. It was who you are. That's what it was. Is who you are, and it was a totality of who you are, and it changed. The definition has changed, and it has taken on this negative thing that is within us, and it is the reason why we make bad decisions. It's also where our desires and passions are located, and within. So some people will call it, you're materialistic because you're living in your ego, or your ego is causing you to be materialistic. And so all these material things are your desires, and the things that you want to do are your passions. And so all of this is considered bad because it's part of your ego. All the things you want and desire, basically, is how the ego is defined today. And so with this new age movement, there is this sense of getting rid of the ego. Rid yourself of the ego, because the ego is causing all the problems. The ego is what, excuse me, since the ego is the one that has all the desires, and if you desire to do bad things, then it's the ego that's causing all of this chaos, right? The reason why you're suffering is because the ego is causing you to do it. The ego is causing you to make bad decisions. And so, like I said, this new age movement is basically saying remove yourself from the ego. And even I've noticed it in some of these law of attraction teachings, where it said, just release the things that you want and it will automatically come to you. So don't have any desires for it, because if you've already had a desire for it, then the universe already knows that it's there. Abraham Hicks uses the vortex as their holding pot, I guess you can say, for all these things, all of the desires that you have. And also there's teachers who say, well, if you meditate, then if you have negative thoughts, or you're desiring something, and if you're desiring something, like you're truly wanting something, and it's not coming, and you get frustrated, just meditate. Or what Abraham Hicks would say is just pivot, which is change your thought to a different thought, to a better feeling thought. But all of this is really ignoring your emotions that you're feeling. So if you have anger, if you have anxiety, if you have frustration from desiring these things and they're not coming, well, these emotions that are within you come from somewhere. And so to ignore it, to ignore the ego, or to ignore the feelings that are surfacing because these things aren't coming to you, they're there for a reason. We are emotional creatures, and our whole existence is based on emotion. It's based on love and all the emotions that come with it, and it's based on all the emotions that are unloving. So to ignore these things is to ignore the essence of who and what we are. So, look, there are over 200 million abortions and miscarriages a year. That means that there are over 200 million souls trying to come in for a physical experience that don't make it. So, and that's not even including the stillborns. And that number is even, the number that I presented of 200 million is actually a low figure, because these are the ones that are documented. There's a lot of abortions and miscarriages that go undocumented. So the number is pretty high in terms of the souls wanting, desiring to come in, but they don't make it. So, and maybe I think I need to do that abortion. I've been avoiding the abortion video for almost a week now. So I think I really need to get that out. But there's something within me that's keeping me from doing it, and I need to. That's what I really need to work out. So, because it is closely related to my past, and so that's why I don't go there with it. So that means I have an emotional injury that's preventing me from talking about it. And like I said before, when you know how you know when your emotional injury is gone is you'll be able to speak about it freely without having any kind of negative emotion or sad emotion that tied to it. You can just talk about it because it doesn't affect you anymore. That's how you know when something has been resolved within you. And let me change that. Not resolved, but it has passed through you. And so that emotional injury no longer resides within your soul. It's literally gone. So going back to this, jeez, I always do this. Going back to the ego thing. So when you first come in, you have you come in as a soul, and you're already preloaded, like pre-programmed with what you need, and that's basically love. You have that within you. So what happens is, as we experience this world, even at conception, we start experiencing things as a soul at conception. But what happens when we're born, now we're experiencing the world through physical means. And so we take on these things. And so what happens is, because we have love already programmed within us, it's the essence of who we are, we experience these emotional injuries. So let's say our mother or father push us away. Well, we automatically know that that's not love. We know that that is the absence of love. And so this is why children cry. Like, a child can come up to you and be happy and loving, but if you're in a bad mood and you push them away, they'll start crying. And the reason why they're crying is because they know that there is absence of love. Now, they don't consciously know this. They know this on a feeling level. And so, on an emotional level. And so this is why they're crying, because they know that there's an absence of love, and that doesn't feel good. That's already pre-programmed into us. And this is how we know whether or not we are acting in love or acting outside of love, if we're being loving or being unloving. So what happens is we have these emotional injuries. that are now contained within us. And the reason why they're contained within us is because our parents don't allow the parents don't allow the children to process these things. So it's held within us. It doesn't pass through. So imagine a child who goes outside and they fall and they start crying and processing what has happened. And then 5 minutes later, they're out doing the exact same thing they were doing without any fear, because that emotion was allowed to pass through them. So they don't even have, since they allowed the emotion to pass through them, they didn't contain it within them. Now they don't have fear of it. So that's how children process things. But what happens is, if a parent is present and they fall, what they do is they're like, oh, they're there, it's okay, I'll say, don't cry. And so they don't, I'm getting over a cold, just if you guys are new to this, I was sick for a while, so that's why I'm coughing. I don't have like tuberculosis or anything like that. I don't even know if that makes you cough, but I think it does. Anyway, the parent will say, they're there, don't cry, and they'll rock them and do whatever, or give them something to take their attention off of what just happened. And which is what the law of attraction teachers are doing right now. They're saying when you experience these emotions of sadness and negative emotions, be anger or rage or whatever, or resentment, jealousy, whatever it is, pivot. Just change your attention to something else. That's exactly what they're saying, which is exactly what the parents have been doing when from the beginning with their children. Don't process the information, hold it within you so it turns into fear, so then now you have other problems. So this leads me to the next aspect. So you have your original self, which is the soul, and then you have the injuries that are incurred by the soul. Then you have what we will now identify as the ego. Since this is how we identify it today, this is how I'll have to break it down to you and explain it. The ego is basically a facade. That's how we see the ego today, as a facade. It's not the real you. It's this creative personality or I should say a personality that you have created in order to cover up the injuries. So if you have insecurity, let's take the female. Females are really easy with this one. Let's take a female. Let's say the female has insecurities about her looks or her body or whatever. So what does the lady do? She starts putting on makeup so that she doesn't have to face what she's resistant to. She'll start wearing clothes and start doing other things in order to not deal with the insecurities that she has. Meaning she's not comfortable in herself, in her skin. She's not comfortable with anything that she is. So therefore, she starts putting on makeup and starts doing all these things with her hair and starts wearing clothes and lots of jewelry and all these fragrances and all these different things in order to mask what her injuries are, which is her self-worth, what she identifies as. She's not comfortable with it. So she tries to hide it. And this becomes part of the ego, part of the facade. And with men, you can do the same thing. There's certain guys who like, let's say, big trucks or whatever. They like just everything about cars. So everything is cars. And this makes them feel a certain way, makes them feel masculine, makes them feel in charge, because this is something that our society looks at and says, oh yeah, that's what makes you man if you're a mechanic or you're this or you're that. So if they have issues with identifying themselves as being a man, then they will do all these external things in order to create a facade for themselves and for others. So there's all types of things that we do as human beings to cover up the emotional injuries that we have. Some facades could be, you may meet people who are always cheerful and smiling. And they're like, nothing's ever wrong with them. And they're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm great, everything's perfect. While they're dealing with all kinds of stuff inside and at home. So these are all facades that the ego has created in order not to deal with all the emotional injuries that are there. And so we live by the facade. That's what we identify with, is this created personality that is really created to cover something. And so the thing is, now with this New Age movement, what we have is this whole meditation thing. And I know I'm gonna, ruffle some feathers with this one because the traffic is really heavy today. People are really about this meditation thing. And so here, let me explain how this works. So let's say you're on this New Age thing, and you're all about love and oneness and all this stuff, and meditation is part of your ritual. And so this is what you do. You meditate. All right, so let me see. So let's say someone, do you want to get over? Because I want to get over too. So maybe we can help each other out. Here we go. There we go. Mwah! Love ya. All right, so let's say that you are experiencing something. And so since you're part of this New Age movement where you're not going to really acknowledge your feelings, and also this part of this New Age movement is to get rid of the ego, because the ego is the one that's causing the problems. So you don't have a facade anymore. So that means you basically abandon all your desires and all your passions, right? Because that's where all this stuff resides, supposedly. So we have all of this stuff. Lady, you want to get over? Go ahead. Come on. Go ahead. I hope you're going to Sacramento, because if you don't get over, you just wanted to get her. I knew it. She wanted to get over for no reason. Well, maybe she wants to get up at the next exit, but whatever. Okay, so let's say, so like I said, they want to get rid of the whole ego thing. So they want to bypass it and create this bliss. So basically, if you don't have these desires, right, and the reason why you don't want to have these desires is because when you desire it and they don't come, you get angry. So now we want to just get rid of the ego and all the passions and all the desires. And so let's say you get angry. So there's basically this line that is between, okay, so let me paint a picture for those of you who are visual. Imagine a piece of paper. And on the far left side of the paper, you write your soul, which is your original self. And then to the right of that, in the middle of the paper, you're going to write all of your injuries, like all your emotional injuries. So just write injuries. And then on the right side, you're going to have your ego, which is the facade, right? Look, and she want to get back over. This lady is doing. She's working it though. I'm not even mad at her because she's working it, because I'd be zigzagging too. Okay, so so on the right side you have facade, ego. So if you put a line between injuries and ego, this is the state of bliss. This is the state of bliss that the New Age movement is creating for you. So we've distanced ourselves from the ego. So we're not craving or really desiring these things anymore. And so now we need to create bliss. So how do we do that? Well, we meditate. So when these negative things come up, or we get irritated and someone's like really eating at us and we have these negative emotions, people want to meditate. And they're like, okay, I need to go meditate. I need to meditate. I need to quiet my mind. All of this stuff. And so when you meditate, you create this peaceful place, this place of bliss, where you don't have any emotions at all. Like you don't have any desires, no passions, nothing. You're not experiencing anything. And so this is the state of bliss that they're creating for you, right? So you're living there, but what's happening is you are not acknowledging that there are issues there that are causing the pain. And at the same time, you're robbing yourself of desires. We came here to create. Create what? Whatever we want. And what does that desire come from? The things that are within you that you want. And this is where you create from. This is where you create from. So if you're no longer connected to that aspect of who you are, then you're just sitting there, stagnant, which is going to cause more emotional injuries because you always desire more. The Creator desires more, and we are made in the image of the Creator, and so that we are here to create, to expand. And so when you don't when you don't acknowledge this, then you don't go for all kinds of desires, all kinds of passions. It could be making beaded jewelry. That could be their biggest passion. And yet it doesn't come to them. They don't know, maybe they're poor and they don't have the financial means to make it happen, and so they grow resistant, and so they don't attract money to make this happen, or the people to make it happen. So I mean, all kinds of things happen. So the idea of getting rid of the ego is really counterproductive. It's not assisting you in expansion, it's restricting you. So this whole pivot thing, I had a friend who messaged me the other day about having negative thoughts about something that was happening. So I believe that person was desiring something and it wasn't happening, or that person was worried that it would go a certain way if they made a decision and it wasn't received in the manner that they would like it to be received, and the outcome wasn't what they wanted the outcome to be. So they were having resistance within themselves. And so and so here this person is desiring something, and at the same time saying, I don't know if I should do that because I'm having resistance to it. So it's like, well, what are you doing? We came here to expand. We came here to desire and create the things that we desire. So to not acknowledge the desire is not honoring yourself. It's not honoring the true self. So here's the thing. If you live through the facade, then that means you're not acknowledging the injuries that's keeping the true desires from you. So you have to acknowledge your desires and the pain that comes after when the desire isn't fulfilled or doesn't come to you. You have to acknowledge that. If you don't acknowledge that, then you go right back to the facade, which is everything's okay, or you align to that state of bliss that this new age thing is giving to people. So when it doesn't come, you meditate. Oh, okay, my negative thoughts are gone, my pain is gone, I feel better now. I no longer desire anything, so I'm just okay with what I have, because that's basically what they're moving you towards. Is once you, and it is true on a certain level, once you move into a certain state, you don't need these external things to satisfy you. This is true. But when you have these desires and you keep them from yourself, like you keep yourself from thinking about it, then you're cutting yourself off, because the fact of the matter is you exist and you are experiencing these desires. So they're there. They're part of you. So is the anger. It's there. It's part of you. So, lady, I don't know if you're trying to come over, but I'm not trying to deal with that right now. So you have to acknowledge this part that you're calling the ego. And let me tell you, the ego, what people are calling the ego is you. It's who you are. Your soul is all of your passions, all of your desires, all of your emotional injuries, all of everything, all of your experiences. It's all you. It's not some separate thing. But because you see it as a separate thing, these teachers who are teaching this new age stuff, and the law of attraction is part of it, and some of it, a lot of it, is coming from entities on the other side of the veil that's teaching you this. So at one point, I don't think I've ever made a video about it, but there are entities that are, for the sake of simplicity, there's type 1 and type 2 entities. And these are the entities that come in through these channelers, and so they channel this entity or these entities. Well, these type 1 and type 2 entities operate differently. One of them operate within love, and one of them operates outside of love. But one of them, the first one that operates in love, and honors the divine love, which is God's love, the Creator's love, true love, absolute love, they operate differently. The type 2 entities, they live in what is called natural love, which is not divine love, it's not God's love, it's not absolute love, it's not true love. It means I will present something to you in a way that seems loving, but in actuality, what I'm doing is satisfying myself, my desires, my needs. So, let's say someone wants to go on a trip. I'll give you a human example of this. Let's say someone wants to go on a trip and they don't have enough money to go on their own. So, what they say is, hey, would you like to go on a trip with me? It'd be cheaper for you. It'd be cheaper for you if we go together. And you're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I've always thought about going on a cruise or whatever it is. And so you agree to it. Well, the reason why they asked you is because they couldn't do it on their own. So they presented an option to you, an idea that appealed to you to make it look like you were getting a deal. But in actuality, all you were doing is securing a trip for them. So they didn't ask you out of love, they asked you out of selfishness, which is a natural love. So yeah, you're benefiting from it, but the main goal was to benefit themselves. And so there's some entities that, and here's the thing, if you know about the shift that is happening on the planet right now, then you know that Gaia and all of its inhabitants in its entirety is moving to a different level, which is a oneness, a love. And so this is what some of the entities are presenting to you, but they're not giving all of the information. The thing is, yes, they're creating an illusion, some of them, not all of them. So like I said, there are type 1 and type 2 entities that come. The type 1 entity will come from love. They will never deny you your free will, and they will never present something that would trick you into believing that you're doing something while you're delivering something else. They honor your free will, and they will never do anything or suggest that you compromise your free will. They will present information to you and allow you to make the choice. Whereas other entities that are type 2 will say, this is what you need to do, this is what you should do. They come at it from a different perspective, which is a perspective that is not in alignment with love. But the thing is, if you know what love is, if you know what true absolute love is, then you can identify this stuff. You can use discernment and say, okay, I hear what you're saying. I can hear the goodness in what you're saying, but I can also see that some of this stuff is not being said in its entirety, and there's certain things that are left out. Then you have to ask yourself, if you know what's going on the planet, how would it affect the planet? How would it affect the ascension process or the shift that's going on? And how does that affect entities that don't want the shift to happen? Well, if we're using the law of attraction, right? Because this is what we're governed by, is law of attraction. And law of compensation, which is karma. So if we're attracting all these negative things based on the things that are held within us, do you think it makes sense to not deal with it? Do you think it makes sense to ignore the very thing that's creating the events that are causing misery within our lives? Do you think that makes any sense? If you don't, then you have to really look at this and say, hey, what am I doing? Why am I ignoring these things that are within me? Because if you have any negative feelings, it's because it's within you. The New Age law of attraction type 2 entities will tell you that your thoughts are creating your thoughts. Yes, your thoughts are a part of this. The law of attraction isn't responding to your thoughts. If law of attraction responded to your thoughts, you can say, hey, I want a brand new red Mustang, and boom, it would appear. It just would. But it doesn't respond to your thoughts. It responds to your emotions. It responds to your heart. It responds to your feelings. That's what it responds to. So if you have these things that are within you, meaning, let's say you don't feel attractive, you truly don't feel attractive, but you do all these things to create a facade that make you feel attractive, but deep down you don't feel that way, then how do you attract a partner if that's what you're desiring? If you don't feel attractive and you think no one's going to like you, then, and you're not able to attract this, where do you think that outcome is coming from? It's coming from you inside and how you truly feel about yourself. I don't care how many pounds of makeup you put on your face, or how many suits you wear, and the style and the quality. It doesn't matter what it is. Whether you're jazzing yourself up as a man or you're jazzing yourself up as a woman, what you hold inside is what law of attraction is responding to. So even though you're not thinking about it, you still have those emotional injuries that are suppressed. And so you've created this facade so that you don't think about your insecurities. You don't think about your self-worth. You don't think about the lack of love that you've received. Because if you feel lack of love within you, there is no way that you're going to attract someone who loves you. It's impossible. Now, what you can attract is someone who is also living in a facade. You can attract a needy person. You can attract a needy person who is willing to tell you any and everything that you need and want to hear in order for them to keep you in their lives. But that doesn't mean it's authentic. So you have to be very mindful of how this stuff works. And the emotions that many of you are ignoring. It doesn't work that way. You have to deal with this stuff. And anyone who's telling you to not think about negative thoughts, or the negative thought, the pain, the anger, all of that is coming from somewhere. And that is coming from suppressing, the anger is coming from suppressing original painful experiences. That's where the anger is coming from. And as soon as you touch that, it's like, okay, I'm either going to create bliss, or I'm going to go back to the facade that I've created that made everything okay before I felt these negative emotions. Sorry about that. So yeah, you're gonna have to really look at this, what you're doing, how you're processing this. And some of you already know this, but you've already bought into the idea that it's okay, it's easier to just ignore the emotional injuries. It's easier to ignore the pain. It's easier to just pivot and turn your face and not think about it. But the thing is, if you're experiencing it, then it's important for you to experience, and you have to experience it. It's within you. You wouldn't be experiencing it if it wasn't within you. There are people who don't experience certain things that are negative. It's because it's not within them. They don't hold the issue. So it's not going to come out. Nothing's going to trigger anything. So anytime you're triggered regarding any emotion, whether it's sadness, whether it's self-worth, it doesn't matter what it is. Anger, it's there because it's in you, and it's surfaced so that you can pay attention and deal with it. So anything that tells you to ignore it, to turn your head, it's doing you a disservice. It is doing you a disservice. And if you buy into it, then that means you're doing yourself a disservice. So anyway, that's my little bit on that. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I think today's Wednesday. Wednesday. So it's hump day, and we're almost to the end, so that's cool. And remember, always, that you are loved. Have a good one, everybody. Bye. All right. I had to come back. Excuse me. Still have a cough. I had to come back because I listened to my video a couple of times, and there were some things that I left out, and there also are some things that I need to clarify. When I listened to my video, it came across it seemed as if I was really attacking law of attraction. And that's not what I was doing at all. The law of attraction is a universal law. It's one of God's laws. There are many of them. And when we're dealing with God's laws, we're dealing with something that cannot be avoided, it cannot be manipulated, and it can't be mitigated. All of God's laws are perfect and predictable. So when I was talking about law of attraction, I was talking about those who teach law of attraction and their interpretation of it. Because and I've heard many law of attraction teachers out there, so I know what they're saying. And so I just had a banana, sorry. I know that the teachings that they're putting out there, and I can understand the perspective. And in their defense, so I'm not attacking them, but if it seemed that way in their defense, I can say that there are certain people who just found out about law of attraction, and it is a universal law. And so if someone learned law of attraction for the first time through anybody, I'll just stay with Abraham Hicks. Abraham Hicks is one of the ones that I started to listen to in the beginning, aside from watching the movie The Secret. But when I watched that, I just forgot about it because it didn't make any sense. But then when I listened to Abraham, it made more sense. But then as I listened to other teachers, there were other components that were present that Abraham Hicks was leaving out. And so this is what I mean in terms of discerning and knowing what information is complete and what information is not, and being able to take the truth out of some information and discard the part that is not of love, I should say. So earlier in the video, I had mentioned the type 1 and type 2 entities. Well, there's a certain channeler that I had listened to for a long time. And there was something, the information was great, and there was a lot of information, a lot of truth in it. But at times there was like this energy that I was like, something's not right. Something's not right about that. And so I couldn't just buy into everything that entity was saying, because I knew within me, in my soul, I knew something wasn't right. But that doesn't mean that I had to discard everything. It means that I had to use a discernment and figure this stuff out, which is the responsibility of myself. And the reason why it's my responsibility is because I am responsible for me, I am responsible for my beliefs, and I am responsible for the direction that I take using my free will. Now, I didn't mention free will earlier, but I'll mention it now. Free will is very important, and a lot of people don't really understand how it works. Well, free will is literally like a knife. If you use the knife and you know how to use it, you know how to operate the knife, then it can benefit you very well. But if you don't know what you're doing with the knife, and you've never used it before, or you don't know how to manage the knife, then it can do some serious damage to yourself and other people. So we use our free will every day, either to engage something or refrain from engaging something. But it's all our free will. All of it is our choice. So earlier I was talking about how many people see the ego as being something separate. And it's really all one. It's all your soul. But since we look at them that way, I had mentioned that this new age is assisting people with creating bliss, and it really comes from either pivoting, which is basically changing your thought to a different thought, or changing your thought to a more positive thought, leaving the negative thought behind. And that's one way to put yourself in this more blissful state, right? Where you're not feeling the negative emotions. And then another part that they're teaching is to meditate. But the thing with meditation, like I mentioned earlier, you're not really addressing the problem. Look, I know some people who think they are masters at law of attraction and they're great at attracting things. But they have buttons that are big as I don't know what. And once you push that button, they go off. And you can see it. It's, they like to retaliate if you say something that they don't like, and they're like, well, you're negative, and rah, 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 rah. Or like, I don't have to listen to this BS, and all these different emotions, right? And so they have to go back into this meditative state. And so this is what I'm talking about. Just because you meditate and you put yourself in a blissful state does not mean that all of those injuries that you have within you or had within you are gone. They're still there. You've just learned how to trick yourself from acknowledging that you have an injured self. So you have your original self, you have your injured self, and then you have your facade, which is your ego. But you have to understand that, well, you don't have to understand anything. You can take what I say with a grain of salt. It's whatever it is to you, right? But for some of you, you will understand what I'm talking about, and this will assist you in better understanding yourself and why you do things in addition to how others operate. So like I said, you have your original self, your inner self, and your facade that you have created. But what you have to understand is that your original self ended up creating an injured self. And it is this injured self that people don't want to deal with. So what they do is they create a facade to mask the injury so they don't have to deal with the injured self. So they create this different character, this facade, the ego, which is what they call it now. And so they do that to mask all the injuries so they never have to deal with it. So the New Age movement and some of these teachings are basically saying, well, all you have to do is let's get rid of the ego and create this bliss so that you don't have to deal with the desires and the passions of the ego, and you also don't have to deal with the injuries. So it keeps you right there in this state where you're not really having a will for anything anymore, because when you're meditating, you're not desiring anything. You're not willing for anything. Nothing's happening. And you're also not dealing with the negative stuff. So this is that bliss state that I was talking about, where they try to get you to stay. But like I said earlier in the video, we were put here to create, to experience emotions. But the thing is, if you're not willing for anything anymore, because look, when you're in meditation, it's said that when you're meditating, you're at a peaceful, restful, calm state, and you're one with everything. Just one with everything. And that's not really what it is. We didn't come here to be just in silence. We didn't come here to not will for anything. We came here to will for everything and anything that we want. This is what we have. This is where the free will comes in, to decide what it is we want to experience, what it is we desire to have that come into our lives. So when you're in this meditative, blissful state, you're not doing any of the things that our Creator allowed us to come here to experience. So this is what's so important about this, is to know what's really going on with you. Just because you're not feeling negative emotions and you were able to push away all your desires and passions doesn't mean that that's what we came here for. We could have stayed in the spirit world if that were the case, but we didn't. We came here. We came here. So now I just wanted to add that, because I didn't really make that clear in the earlier video I made this morning. So I hope that cleared it up a little bit more than I did in the initial video. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to comment, and I'm happy to respond to your comments. Let's see if there's anything else. I think that was it. But just remember that I'm not saying that law of attraction is bad or anything like that. I'm just saying be mindful and aware of what you're absorbing. It is your responsibility to yourself in terms of what you absorb and the beliefs that you develop, because all of this stuff will dictate how you move forward in your life. We came here to be the best that we could possibly be, and this is all done through free will. And so if you choose to not want to deal with anything, that's your choice. But all of this stuff has to be dealt with. And when you pass, when you leave the physical world, I should say, the life that you have now, then everything that you didn't deal with will still be there when you die, when you pass on. It's still going to be there in the spirit world, and it's going to be experienced with greater intensity, because the how we perceive things in the spirit world is much more intense with the spirit body than it is with the physical body. So keep that in mind. And I do have another video, if you haven't listened to it. I think it's called Soul, Spirit Body, and Physical Body, and it talks about a little bit about what we are and what happens when we pass on, things like that. All right, so again, you're loved. I know I already said bye, but I'm saying it again. So have a great rest of the week, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye now.